Hi, welcome to my first video on circle trig. And the first video is rotations on the XY plane. Rotations on the XY plane. We have an initial arm, which is where the angle starts to rotate, and the terminal arm is where it ends. And this symbol represents theta, T-H-E-T-A. And this rotation is marked as theta. And we have another angle, so the initial arm is where it starts, and this is the terminal arm, is where the rotation ends. And this is called alpha, A-L-P-H-A. You'll see these theta, alpha, and this one is beta. So the rotation here is alpha, and it's marked in the corner between the initial arm and the terminal arm. And again, we have an initial arm, which is where the rotation starts. And this arm right here is the terminal arm, is where the rotation ends. At this time, we're labeling as beta, B-E-T-A, and the rotation is labeled beta. So we have these ones that I'll be using as theta, alpha, and beta rotations. So we have what we call the standard position of the rotation on the XY axis. Here's the x-axis, here's the y-axis, x-axis, and we know that they are perpendicular to each other. So standard position is the rotation of theta. We're going to rotate. The initial arm is on the positive x-axis. So this is the initial arm. So when we say standard position, the initial arm is always moving out from the vertex 0, 0. The intersection of the xy axis is the vertex 0, 0, or we call it the origin. So it moves out from the intersection of the axes, or 0, 0. That's the initial arm. That's where the rotations will start from all the time when we say in standard position. So the rotation is rotate that way, and we draw the terminal arm out, and this rotation is, we're calling it theta. And again, this is the terminal arm. So the initial arm is where we start, the terminal arm is where we end rotation. Positive and negative rotations on the XY axis. A positive rotation is counterclockwise to the x-axis, counterclockwise. Clockwise moves this way, counterclockwise moves that way. So a positive rotation is counterclockwise from the x-axis. So we start in standard position. This is along, the initial arm is right here. And a positive rotation, positive 60 rotation, is 60 degrees counterclockwise. So that's 60-degree rotation. And 140-degree rotation, again, we start along the x-axis, the initial arm. So this is a 90. So we're going up here, further. And I'm not worried how far in here we're going. I'm just saying that we have a rotation of 150 degrees, and we draw the terminal arm out where it ends. We'll get into these two angles here later, but I'm just doing the rotation now to show you. A negative rotation is clockwise from the x-axis. So we go clockwise, so there's the initial arm right there coming out from the origin. And a negative 70 is clockwise, so we'll go down here 70 degrees, and there's the negative rotation, and we mark negative 70 on that rotation. Negative 130, again we start with the initial arm, which is on the x-axis from the origin, and we go 130, so that's a 90, and we go in here so far. I'm not concerned with how far I moved into this quadrant, but that's a negative 130 degree rotation. We will do more on the next video. about how to get these two angles. And I have another diagram here. This diagram here is just to show that if we rotate this way, it's a positive rotation. And if we rotate this way, we have a negative rotation. And notice that this is a 0 here. This is a 90 here. This is 180. And this is 270. And if we keep going, we can go 360 further. We can go negative rotation, but we'll entertain that later. Here we go. So now we have a 0, 90, 180, 270, 360. We want to rotate 30 degrees. So 30 is, there's the 30-degree rotation again. We want to rotate 110 degrees. 110 is, that's 90 plus some more. So that's 110. So I'll mark 110 on that. Don't have to be exact. I'm just showing you that because I rotated more than 90, so I rotated in here. That's when I put 110 on this arc. That's the rotation. 225 rotation is 90. 180, and we rotate in here. So that rotation is 225. Again, don't have to be exact. And we rotate 310 degrees. 310 is 90, 180, 270, and we're in this, what we call the fourth quadrant. That's a 310 rotation, and we don't have to worry about the exactness. And let's rotate negative 40. Negative 40 goes this way. It goes clockwise. So there's the negative 40 rotation, negative 40 degrees. A negative 120 is, that's a 90, and we're in here. So much more. Again, notice the arrow, and we're gone negative 120. And a negative 240 is 90, 180, and 180. You're going to go up here so far. So that's a negative 240 degree rotation. And a negative 290 is negative 90, negative 180, negative 270, and some more. And again, I repeat, not concerned right now about how far in. We will find these angles after. Just stressing the rotations, how to draw them. And let's do some examples. Graph each rotation on the XY axis, 60 degrees. 60 degrees goes counterclockwise right there. So there's the 60. 150 starts at, again, we're starting at the initial arm all the time. We're starting on the initial arm, which is here, and rotating 90 plus more. So there we are over there. So that rotation is 150. 225 is a 90, 180, and some more. So we have a 225. Again, we start from the initial arm, and there's the terminal arm. 340, we start from initial arm, which is the X, rotate 90, 180, 270, and we're way over here into this quadrant. And that rotation is 340 degrees. Negative 40 is clockwise. So there it is, again, from the initial arm. I keep stressing, and that's a negative 40. And this one is a negative 110, so that's a negative 90 and some more. So that's the initial arm, where we always have to start from. That's the terminal arm, and that's a negative 110. And negative 200 is from the initial arm, negative 90, negative 180, and some more. So there's the rotation, and negative 200. Negative 280 is negative 90, negative 180, negative 270, and some more. We're into the first quadrant with a negative rotation. So the negative 280 rotation. Practice means pause the videos and see if you can draw these on your own. The only thing is you have to draw your axes. And pick up a sheet of extra paper and see if you can draw these rotations correct. Pause the video and draw your rotations. 170 is 90 plus not quite down to the 180. So there it is. Rotations. We start from initial arm, 170. Negative 260, start from initial arm on the x-axis, negative 90, negative 180, and almost up to 270. So there it is. That's a negative 260 degree rotation. And we have a 300 degree. 300 is a 90, 180, 270, and we could say 30 more, but I'm not worried about that yet. So that's 300 degree rotation. Notice that we start from initial arm. Positive goes counterclockwise, negative goes clockwise. Negative 140, initial arm is here. We start from the initial arm, negative 90, and some more. So we're in this quadrant. Negative 140. And 245 is start from initial arm is 90, 180, and 180, and this is 270, so we're somewhere in between. So let's go this far. Again, I'm not concerned how far, but we go more than 180, less than 270. So that's 240. And a negative 30 from the initial arm. Negative 30 is right here. We rotate clockwise. And now we have another little topic. We talk about the quadrants and the quadrant angles. So this is the x-axis, y-axis. This is quadrant 1, Q1. This is quadrant 2, Q2. This is quadrant 3. And this is quadrant 4. Quadrant 1, as you can see, it's between 90 and 180. Quadrant 2 is between 180 and, between 90 and 180. Quadrant 3 is between 180 and 270. Quadrant 4 is between 270 and 360. So that's the quadrants. A quadrant angle is an angle, has to be in, the angle has to be in standard position, which means the angle has to start off on the initial arm, and the terminal arm lies in that quadrant. So what I'm saying is that if you have a quadrant 1 angle, then the initial arm, when it rotates, is in quadrant 1. Now, you can have a positive rotation to end up here, or you can start here and end up like that, as long as the terminal arm ends up in this quadrant. Positive rotation or negative rotation. If the terminal arm ends up in quadrant 1, it's a quadrant 1 angle, no matter how much the rotation is. So let's draw some. A 50 degree rotation. Initial arm, 50 degree rotation is here. There it is. So that's 50 degree is a quadrant 1 angle. 130, start from initial arm, 90 and some more. There it is. 130. 130 is a quadrant 2 angle because the terminal arm ended up in quadrant 2. 250 is 90, 180, and less than 270, so it's in this quadrant here. So that's a 250 rotation, and that's quadrant 3. 250 is a quadrant 3 angle because the terminal arm ended up in quadrant 3. 310 is a 90, 180, 270, and some more. So there's the 310 rotation. So it's a quadrant 4 angle. Negative 150 is start from the initial arm always. So we start here and we go, that's negative 90 and some more. So negative 150 is a quadrant 1, 2, 3, quadrant 3 angle, third quadrant angle. Negative 20, start from initial arm is right here. That's a negative 20, and a negative 20 is a quadrant 4 angle. Negative 340 is negative 90, negative 180, negative 270, way over here. And that rotation is negative 340, and a negative 340 ends up in a quadrant 1. And a negative 210 starts again on initial arm, negative 90, negative 180, ends up here. Terminal arm ends up in 1, 2, quadrant 2. And just to repeat, the quadrant angles, the first quadrant angle ends up in the between 0 and 90. Quadrant 2 angle ends up between 90 and 180, no matter what the rotation. Quadrant 3 between 180 and 270. Quadrant 4 angle ends up between 270 and 360. Notice that when we say this, 270 is less than theta, less than 360. So theta is between 270 and 360. Notice theta is between 180 and 270. Which quadrant does the terminal arm of each lie? So 160 degree rotation, so just draw the axes. That's the X and that's the Y. 160 degree rotation is 90 plus some more. There it is. So that ends up to be in quadrant 2. Quadrant 2 angle. 120 negative. So that's the x-axis, the y-axis. Negative 120 goes negative 90 and some more. So that's the negative 120 rotation. Ends up in quadrant 1, 2, 3. Quadrant 3. And 350 degree rotation is clockwise. Again, that's the X and that's the Y. 90, 180, 270, and it's over right here. And that's the 350 rotation. And that ends up in the quadrant 1, 2, 3. That's the fourth quadrant angle, quadrant 4. And I repeat, the quadrants are quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. And that brings us to the end of this video on looking at the rotations on the XY plane. If you like my video, click the like button, subscribe button, notification bell. Visit my websites, www.mathfullyexplained.com, to find more information about me, my videos, and the content. That's the content on my YouTube channel called Math Fully Explained. Thank you very much for viewing my video. Bye-bye.